It is Friday, June 23rd, 2023, and welcome to episode 235 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm Jamil Jaffer, NSI founder and executive director, and I'm joined by NSI's deputy director, Jessica Jones, and Morgan Vina, senior fellow at NSI and former chief to UN ambassador, and the newest permanent member, not of the UN Security Council, but of the Fault Lines podcast. So today we're talking about the U.S.-India relationship. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was just here in the United States, had a big state dinner with President Biden, gave a speech to the joint session of Congress, and the U.S. and India announced a number of major initiatives moving the ball forward on a critical strategic relationship in the Indo-Pacific. They announced measures on visas, allowing Indians coming to the United States to more easily renew their H-1B visas without having to return or leave the United States. They announced investments in critical minerals, chip making, new agreements on trade to get rid of some existing trade disputes, and the like, and include as well as solar power. So big deals. Obviously, a lot of big defense deals as well. General Electric will be making engines for some fighter jets in India. India will be able to purchase armament capable MQ-9 Reapers. So a lot going on. India, of course, a major non-NATO ally when it comes to defense, a unique designation in U.S. law. So an important thing, and of course, an important relationship when it comes to U.S. relations with China. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, I almost said Prime Minister, I'm not sure why. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was just in China trying to mend fences and trying to create a thaw, as President Biden has called for in the relationship. It doesn't appear that China necessarily wants a thaw. President Xi did meet with Secretary of State Blinken, but they didn't come to any core agreements, as you heard on our recent podcast. So we're looking to India, a key part of the Quad partnership, along with Japan and Australia and the United States, all Pacific nations, and a key bulwark, as many have said, for the United States and our allies in the region. Interestingly, the joint statement did note the coercion taking place, both economic and the like, in the Indo-Pacific region by unnamed nation states. You can all guess who it is. As well as threats to open travel and the like, and the need for freedom of navigation, including in the South China Sea. So we all know who India and the United States are talking about. We see this budding relationship. Morgan, what do you think?
Yeah, no, this visit was clearly designed to woo Modi. The United States and India clearly share, competition with China as one of their main foreign policy challenges. And so, as you mentioned, they achieved a lot of different, agreements, were able to check off a lot of partnerships, whether it was, semiconductors, supply chain diversification, defense, et cetera. So I think those are all positive developments. At the same time, though, when we take a look at India and its sort of broader foreign policy, it's still a member of the nonaligned movement. And so there are existing challenges, particularly with India's partnership with Russia, particularly in the defense space. That's not going to change anytime soon. But I think particularly on the China piece, that is very important and something that the United States should make progress in. I think Biden, made some pretty good steps in the right direction. But I think a lot of this a lot of the work's going to be done after Modi goes home.
No, that's a great point. And, the Indian relationship with Russia goes back to the Cold War, the U.S. Relationship with Pakistan, us supplying them fighter jets, and the Russians supplying the Indians with supplies. But, look, $157 billion in trade between our two nations, right? 4 million Indian immigrants, I'm one of them, living here in the United States. I guess I'm not, 3 generations back, I guess I'm ethnically one of them, but we came through East Africa, so maybe not exactly, but Jess, what do you think? Morgan seems to think this is a strong move for the U.S. And wait, was that Morgan complimenting the Biden administration?
Yeah, that was, I believe, Morgan.
Wouldn't go that far, but I recognize progress when I see it.
All right, Jess?
To all those points, I think it's a huge win for both India and a huge win for Modi himself, right? I think, a little less than 20 years ago, he was denied a visa to even come to the United States. And you still have criticism here and abroad about what's, his consolidation of power, some human rights criticism. But he's getting this, a state dinner. I do think it's interesting. The fact sheet, the White House fact sheet, has all of, the tech cooperation. And second is defense, because as Morgan rightly points out, they're a huge defense partner with Russia, which means ongoing ties. They continue to supply a lifeline buying Russian oil, coal, fertilizer. And so to the point of being non-aligned, they have enough political clout and economic power to be able to take opportunities as they come and make deals that they want to. So as much as I think it was Modi calling it the defining partnership of the century between US and India, I mean, they get to really pick who they want to work with. And at times it's not going to be the US. And there's not much we're going to be able to do about that, it seems.
That really is the trick, right? Morgan, what about that? I mean, that's a real problem, right? I mean, they are the I in BRICS, right? And the rest are all a mix of not great countries, Brazil, Russia, China. I mean, do we really think, India's been very good about playing this non-aligned game for a long, long time. I mean, do we really think they're going to come over and be a solid ally? I mean, they're saying the right things, but Modi, for all of his, productiveness, and he's from Gujarat like I am, but of course I'm Muslim, he's Hindu, and he's got that Muslim Hindu thing going on.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah,
it's a thing. Do we think can he pull it off himself? I mean, and can this partnership really be real?
I think this visit was really a bear hug for both countries. A lot of flattery, a lot of flowery language involved. But I think it's important to note that Modi made a very important point to talk about India as a global power. It's the most populous country in the world. It's the 5th largest economy.
Largest democracy.
Right. So genuinely, I think Modi wants to elevate himself as a global leader, as a global power, and less as a developing middle country, so to speak. Regardless, the BRICS is important, but I think Modi sees himself as moving beyond just that forum.
Yeah. I kind of want to play the Les in the group, because I feel like if Les was here, he would say, is there a middle ground? Is there a way to not continuously flatter Modi, but of course, embrace and welcome India as a country, right? And to being a global power? Because at the end of the day, Modi's not going to be around forever, right? And there is criticisms, but how do we stay on the right side of history and who might come to power next?
Yeah, I don't know about that, Jess, because Les might say that, but they would also cut against this whole thing about how our foreign policy on China has been schizophrenic and it goes back and forth and we're nice and we're mean. Les likes it both ways, right? He wants us to be sort of middle of the road, but then when we are middle of the road, he doesn't like us being in the middle of the road either. So you can't win. I don't know. I do think that the criticism of Modi obviously is valid, but at the end of the day, net, he's been economically very positive for India. From a relationship with the United States, he's been a net win for the United States, right, and continues to be. So again, we have a lot of our friends who we don't love on human rights and stuff, and we're critical of them. But I'm a realist when it comes to foreign policy, and India is a critical piece of the U.S. alliance there in the Indo-Pacific. That Quad is. There's nothing more important to our pushing back on China than the U.S. Quad relationship and the U.S.-EU relationship. And the U.S.-EU relationship right now in China isn't great because the Europeans are still, even after they learned the lesson about the Russians, they're still not learning it apparently on China. Morgan, you get the last word.
I see a lot of opportunity with the U.S. partnership with India. Not only in the tech and the telecom space and critical minerals, but I think from a foreign policy standpoint, I don't see us wooing over Modi anytime soon from a non-aligned position. But I do see opportunities for greater partnership moving forward, particularly in energy and the defense space.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks to all of us for being here. Thanks to Brooke Khan from NSI and Claude Jennings for the help producing today's episode. Please join us again next Monday for another episode of Fault Lines, the podcast that gets you smart fast on the national security debates shaking America. We're also now up on YouTube, so check out our friendly smiling faces on NSI's YouTube page. And if you like what you heard, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And by the way, folks, after July 4th, we're going to have a special series this summer, so get ready for a special weekly Fault Line series. We'll tell you all about it in the next week or so.